start the proceedings for the day. Samba just texted me he's joining, and so we'll start by lighting the diya, and then we'll move to the agenda for the day. So. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening at the inauguration of the Center for Digital Transformation at IIMA. I'm very delighted and pleased to see you all. And before we speak more about the center, I am glad to introduce the co-chair for the advisory committee, Cathy Bessant, who heads the technology and operations at Bank of America, managing over approximately 100,000 people across 35 countries. She is one of the formidable leaders, considered the most powerful women in banking for 3 years. And we're very delighted to have you, Cathy, here. And I'll hand over the proceedings to you as the first speaker for the day.
Thank you very much. And as I mentioned a moment ago, I am very honored, and Bank of America is very honored to be a part of what we think will be a very special and very important effort. And I would start by thanking all of you for attending today and for your schedule flexibility, as we've tried to have this meeting a couple of times, but your participation and your creativity and thoughtfulness literally has the potential to change the world with this effort. And I'm not really prone to hyperbole, but I believe what we're doing here and what we're inaugurating today is simply that important. I think we should also start by acknowledging the human suffering of the last 18 to 20 months. And while we hope the situations are improving globally every day, there are still human lives deeply impacted. And so just really want to acknowledge that and respectfully dive into this discussion with that as a backdrop. Because I think more than anything else, we are proving that we are interconnected as a globe, that we're interdependent as a people, and it's efforts like this that should help move us forward as we try to figure out what the new world looks like. I was really my last big business trip in November and December of 2019 was in India. I spent time in Gujarat in November of 2019. Several of you were there. I also got to visit the IIMA campus. Seeing Errol again makes me happy. And also we had 2 sessions with the students that really informed, I think, a lot of the ways that I think about how we move the workforce forward and prepare our students to be the leaders of the future that they can and must be. We've all seen digitization take off during the pandemic. And I think we're seeing the impact of the ongoing intersection of humanity and technology. And part of when I was thinking about what I wanted to say today, part of what I walked around thinking is it isn't enough to code. It's not enough to have technical knowledge. I've never met a line of code that made a decision on its own, that wasn't crafted or implemented or adapted by humans. And that intersection of humans and technology I think is one of the most important ways the world will move forward. And as a company that believes very strongly in responsible growth, technology is a huge driver of growth, and its implementation in a responsible, ethical, moral, constructive way could not be more important than it is right now. And so the effort we'll embark on, that we will together advise each other on, is, I think, all involving how to bring us forward to ensure that we get the very, very best of technical capabilities, and at the same time, the very, very best of responsibility and humanity. When I'm hiring young people, sometimes they write on their resumes or their CVs all the languages that they can code in, or all the software applications they can use. And while that's interesting, I think what we're really looking for as a society, and which is why we're all together, is a culture of lifelong learning, regardless of age, a culture of constant adaptation, recognizing that technology will move us more quickly than it ever has, but also with the firm underpinning that a lot of progress has been made. This is not the first electronic revolution in industry. We've been sending money by wires for decades. But it is the speed and urgency and comprehensiveness of this globally is, we believe, something that's very important to address. And that's really why we're here, and why we're partnering with such a great institution and have put together such a terrific advisory group, because the stakes are high. The stakes are really high, and world changers like all of you do in fact have to do what I said at the beginning, which is change the world. You've all been handpicked, leaders, influencers, great minds. Nothing in the discussion is off the table. And I'm really honored to be joining you today, and for all of us to be inaugurating what I think is going to prove to be and one of the most special things I hope we conclude we have ever worked on together. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Cathy, for this introduction. And just, so we know, for the broader audience, we're talking about the Center for Digital Transformation at IIMA was conceptualized and championed by IIMA and Bank of America together. And I want to thank Bank of America for thinking ahead and having such vision in creating such an entity. It is both heartening and humbling for me to be here. Heartening because we've faced numerous challenges in the last 1 year, and finally seeing this day is great feeling. We tried, for some of you who may be aware, we tried launching in April, and the second wave of COVID in India did not let us do so. And we faced multiple challenges over the last 1 year. I moved back to IIMA in India after 17 years of being in US, all excited, and came to face with COVID for the last 1 year. So it's very heartening to see that we are here. It's also very humbling because the kind of people we have gathered, and as Cathy underlined, are the best of the best in the world. And we're very excited to have, but also a very humbling feeling to be amidst people that who have agreed to give their time and commitment to this initiative. So we have a great team, as Cathy mentioned. Just to introduce the Center for Digital Transformation and the team here, there are a couple of parts that I would do the introductions in. So one is the council and advisory committee for the center. Then there is the faculty members from IIMA. And then there is the core research and administrative team of the center. So three things. So at the council level, we have very senior people again. Dr. Ritu Agarwal, who is the Distinguished University Professor and Associate Dean of the Robert Smith School of Business at University of Maryland. She is also the founding director of the Center for Health Information and Decision Sciences, an academic leader with over 100 plus publications, and very glad to have you, Ritu. She's again one of the persons I have talked and interacted with over many years, starting from the time when I started my PhD. Then we have Debjit Ghosh, who is the fifth president of the NASSCOM, a leading body in India, but also a pathbreaker in the sense that she's the first woman to lead Intel India Manufacturers Association for Information Technology and now NASSCOM. So welcome, Debjit, and looking forward to working with you. We also have Rajesh Gopinathan, who we were just discussing, is also a proud, we are very proud he's an alum of ours. And he heads TCS and has had very many senior leadership roles in TCS since the time he has joined. So very good to see you, Rajesh, and welcome to the center. Then we have Nandan Nilekani, who is the co-founder of Infosys and non-executive chairman since last few years. He has served as the chairman of Unique Identification Authority of India, UDAI, and is widely known to have built Aadhaar, which forms the foundation for many services in India. So a true leader in the space of digital technologies and management. We have Aditya Puri, who is a seasoned banker again, and is recently with Carlyle Group, but has spent many years since inception at HDFC Bank, serving as its CEO as well. So welcome, Aditya, and we look forward to having and working with you here. I have with me Dr. V. Sambamurthy, or Samba as he's usually called. He's currently the Dean of the Wisconsin School of Business and Madison, and is an eminent scholar in the areas of innovation and digital strategy. And before this, he was at the Eli Broad College of Management, and both Samba and Ritu have been the editor-in-chief of Information Systems Research, which is one of the two leading journals in our field of information systems. I also proudly say that Samba was my mentor and advisor, and he has been a great champion of me since the days I started my PhD. So very good to see you, Samba, and welcome to the center again at IIMA. So this council that I just introduced is created to discuss issues regarding responsible use of digital technologies and AI. And just to give a brief idea of what we mean by that, Cathy, I think, alluded to it. Very many algorithms are now being used to make decisions. So decisions like the ones if we make regarding, just for the sake of an example, credit worthiness of an applicant, rely on use of large amount of data, the data that comes with the bias inbuilt, the bias that might have percolated with the data because of the decision that were biased to begin with, because they were made in an era where a lot of biases existed. And so the bigger challenge that we see when we talk about responsible digital transformation is whether these algorithms will learn to be unbiased sooner than a human would. And that, to me, is a really big question. And many such questions we face as we go forward in the space of responsible digital transformation, challenges related to data ownership, privacy, and many other questions. And so our goal with the council is to deliberate on these really hard and complex decisions, which will nevertheless shape the form of humanity going forward. And we intend to create new knowledge to tackle these challenges. So to do so, we also have an advisory committee, which I'm going to introduce next. The advisory committee broadly looks at the center and its priorities and the things we work on, including being involved with the work of the council. Cathy Bessant, who just spoke, is the co-chair with me on the advisory committee. And as I just mentioned, she is really one of the most powerful women in banking industry, and she leads a large technology and operations organization. And we were very fortunate to have you again, Cathy. Welcome to the center. In addition to Cathy, we also have Sumeet from Bank of America, and Sumeet, again, heads a large team of over around 25,000 employees for technology operations and business capabilities for all of Bank of America's clients. He is frequently representing bank on the AI at various forums, including branches of US government. And he's also a member of the Council for Responsible Use of AI at Harvard Kennedy School as well. Then on the advisory committee, I have with me my cherished colleague and director of IIMA, Dr. Errol D'Souza. He is a leader, and in many ways, when I decided to visit IIMA 2 years ago, I spoke with Errol, and he kind of convinced me that this is the right place to be, and I'm I'm here partly because of you, Errol. So I really appreciate you doing this and thinking about this initiative and conceptualizing it as well. I have with me on the advisory committee Dr. Ramayya Krishnan. Again, Krishnan, I have talked with for many years since when I was in US during my PhD and after. He's a faculty member at Carnegie Mellon and Dean of Heinz School of Information Systems and Public Policy. He is the current president of Informs and an Informs Fellow and a leader in the domain of information systems as well. So welcome, Krishnan. We've had some conversations and I look forward to having many more with you as we go forward. On the advisory committee, I also have Dr. Debjit, who is the professor of operations management at IIMA. He's the associate professor in operation management at Rotterdam School of Management, Erasmus University as well. And he's a great expert in the field of operations and technology as well. So Debjit, welcome again, and we look forward to going forward. In the second part, I quickly want to mention the various faculty members who have joined the center. I'm very grateful because these are the people who are providing their intellectual capacities to pursue or to help us pursue the agenda. Pramila, Naveen, Rajesh, Swanand, Naman, Samrat, Tarun, Anuj. I'm going to do it very quickly in the interest of time. Amit, Webvi, Hakjin, Adrija, Ernesto, Aditya, Rajat, Sunil, Chitra, Biju, Vidya, and Sanjay. So very quick list, but we're looking forward to having you all and appreciate you joining. Finally, I want to thank the various research associates and our team here, which includes Somnath and Narendra as GM and AGM, and many research associates who are now joining the center. And we've started projects on many of these domains that we said we are passionate to know more about. So with that introduction, let me give a brief philosophy of the center. Yes. Yes, we have also with us Arundhati here. She is almost at the in the council yet because I think we're waiting some approvals. But welcome Arundhati as well. We're looking forward to having you formally join us, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts today as well. She's waiting some approvals, but she'll be part of the council very soon as well. So just to give a brief introduction of and the philosophy of the center. The center, as we see it, is intended to become a thought leader in the domain of digital technologies and management. There are a couple such centers in the world, including MIT's CSER, Center for Information Systems Research. And we do think that we want to be one such leading voice of building thought and knowledge in the world at IIMA with this center. Now, how do we do that? Just to elaborate, a few thoughts we've had, and always, appreciate and welcome all the inputs from everyone who's here and elsewhere. The way to become such a center, in our view, is to first define how we think about the context that we operate in, and then what do we do in terms of what are our operations and our visions and our works. So, in terms of context, I want to underline three things that are important for us to understand. One is the changing social expectations. The ubiquitous technologies have transformed what consumers and society now expects. Amazon was planning to deliver groceries in the trunk of the car of their consumers or inside their apartments, not outside. In India, Big Basket and Swiggy intend to deliver food and groceries right at the moment when you order it. Now, a little bit of perspective, if we go back a few years, India has the concept of hearts. A lot of traders traveled miles to serve few villages after many weeks. So consumers could expect to get their things they wanted to consume only after a few weeks, not instantly like we do now. And so that is an example of changed consumer expectation. And there are many such examples across the world in many domains, government, healthcare services, everything is now at the tip of our hands, and we want it that way. And some of the people, actually, most of the people in this panel and in this presentation today have shaped it or have created such a world. But we have to live in that world of changed social expectations. So that's one aspect of context I see. Beyond the expectations, there is also a transformation of organizations with digital technologies. More and more automation, use of robotic process automations as an example, automated warehouses or IoTs that are connecting processes and things. So both, the processes, products, business models being innovated that transformation of organization is real, and we want to be an important influence of that context and understand it and shape it in the manner we can. Then the final thing of the context that I outline is individual empowerment. And by that, what I mean is, although many people have expectations that are very high, consumer expectations are changing, I understand, but there are many people who can't even aspire to do that. There are very many barriers, and some of my research, we've studied that. There are material barriers, there are mental barriers, there are skill barriers, usage barriers. So if you can't have access to the smartphone, it's hard for you to expect the kind of services that everybody else is getting used to. There are mental barriers. I may not have the confidence to use technology. There are skill barriers. I may not have the skills to do so, or I may not know what to make out of it or how that technology can help me achieve my life goals. So all three, so changing social expectations, organizational transformation, and individual empowerment, I see are the context in which the center will operate and do its works. Now, what are our works? Again, I want to highlight three things here. We want to focus on three things notably. One is the idea of doing everything with rigorous research, which means we are a thought leader who wants to build knowledge. And that means using rigorous scientific principle to either unravel concepts or relationships between them, to build an understanding of how organizations are transforming, how individuals can be empowered, how we can meet increasing social expectations. So we want to focus on that with a very rigorous research. We also want to design a lot of instruments to do so. By the instruments, I mean conferences, competitions, webinars, symposiums, and things of that nature that we are currently working on to meet the needs, which are again intended to accomplish the goal of becoming a thought leader in this space. And finally, and most importantly, I would say, is leverage the wisdom and experience of people who have done it. I have an illustrious panel here with us who have agreed to give their time and commitment. And I want to thank everybody here, including Bank of America, and Kaku is here. So Kaku, many thanks for helping us facilitate it amongst other people. And with that, I want to welcome Errol to say a few words about the center and go from there.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here with all of you. And I can recall fairly clearly the day when Cathy visited us at IIMA and this conversation started. And one of the things that actually got me very keen on the center was the way in which she thinks about digital transformation. It's really at the core, I could see, of Bank of America's strategy. It's a way of actually thinking about how you can be people-centric as well as initiate change. And that sort of resonated with me. And when I spoke to my colleagues as well, that this is a wonderful way for us to collaborate with some good minds across the world and to actually do work on digital transformation, it immediately I got very encouraging responses, and the conversations move forward because of that. In today's world, I mean, companies which are seeking to introduce digital transformation have very clearly, told us in the conversations we've had with them that the leadership needs to be empathetic and needs to be transparent, because the two aspects of digital transformation are quite clear to many companies. One is that it does have the potential to actually remove some jobs which have been in existence. But at the same time, a company which is decided to actually spend resources to upskill people and make them take up substitute jobs available in the corporation helps the company culture to grow, as well as brings in a commitment which enables digital transformation going forward. So I believe that the center would actually be working on areas of this kind, on what sort of talent management is required as companies grapple with this tension that they face of should they be hiring fewer full-time people given the rapid pace of change, or should they be forecasting what's going to happen and train their existing workforce in order to meet the requirements? Clearly, the latter is a win situation because it allows you to continue your corporate culture. And even, for young folks nowadays who are passing through the portals of an institute like ours, I can see that, people who are part of Generation Z or millennials are really looking to see what companies do for them. And, this is definitely something that they would look to join such organizations which are very committed to their vision of how they can contribute at a job and how they can stay visible as they do that. And so digital transformation is going to be as much about, not just the leadership, but also about trying to take people along, being people centered, and managing the talents that they actually have. Uh, my colleague spoke about some of the challenges that you face as a result of doing that, and one was the biases that data sets bring in, and it's even more important, therefore, as a result, to have workforces which are diverse. Because the more diversity you have in the backgrounds you have, the more you get perspectives which take away some of those biases. And so going forward, more diverse workplaces, a culture of support to people in organizations, a focus on company culture and the long-term vision strategy of forecasting where technology will take us and what we should do now in order to make that better world happen is something that I hope the center does. There's also a macro perspective that I hope the center takes up. And when I look at the issue of digital transformation across the world, I can't help but think that in a sense we live in a world where there are 4 data zones. Okay? There is of course China, okay, and then there is the US, there's the European Union, and I would say maybe the rest of the world. Okay? The Chinese one, as is often talked about, is somewhat like an Orwellian society, where no one really bothers about digital privacy. The US-centered one is more corporation-centric, but even there, the debates among scholars have been: does it really empower individuals? The standard format that you hear is individuals don't have the time and energy to actually read through all the things required in a contract, and they basically quickly agree to terms and conditions and come on board. Okay? So even that may not be as empowering. If you look at the European Commission's the data protection regulations, even that that has been in a sense the most empowering. But even there, small companies and medium enterprises have been complaining that the level of investments they have to do in order to come on board actually empowers more the larger players, and the idea was really to contain the growth of the larger players. Okay? So actually we're in a situation where this is a sort of an opportune moment in the world when we should be thinking about global diplomacy around digital. There was a time when I think about say climate change. It wasn't on the international agenda at all. It took many years of diplomacy in order to make that happen. And this is really the time for something like that with respect to data. And I hope the center will be one such place which can spur this idea and make that sort of a thing possible. It's most important because if you think many years ago there was something like a universal declaration of human rights. Okay? The time has really come to think about a sort of a charter for technology, and that really requires people to sit around a table, build the minds that are with us today, who are part of our advisory committee and who will be part of the center, and actually take forward the idea that actually we want, very seriously to deal with the realization that individuals seem to be eager to consume data conveniences and are not so bothered, in a sense, about how companies and others are using the data that they part with as a result. And this is not surprising. I mean, how many times would someone, who goes to drink water really want to check the quality of the water? Okay? It's something like that. I mean, it's so convenient to use, new digital technologies that you don't even think about, what am I really doing when I'm immersing myself in this. And so once we deal with that realization, we actually need to think about, charters for technology. We need to think about ways in which, we can improve the way data is used. And, to my mind, this is really the opportune moment. Okay? The financial crisis was a time when it led to the development of, financial stability forum. This is an opportune moment to think about something like a digital stability board, which actually will, talk about best practices. How do you monitor risk? What are the different regulations that you can actually do, which will provide insights into, global public goals for data? And I hope the center really becomes a place in the world which starts to think about these big things as we go forward. So this is a wonderful moment, and I would really like to thank Bank of America and Kathy for your interest in, taking forward conversations on this type of theme. To all the people who joined us today, and, my colleagues at the Institute, we are really, as I said, sitting, on the edge of something which is going to really transform everyone's lives very deeply. The challenges are huge, and we should not, set ourselves small goals. We should actually think big. India should be the place which can actually start a movement which thinks about some of these issues, because in a sense, where even though we contribute strongly to, digital change across the world, the thought leadership on, how that digital change is actually transforming societies is something that, we all can actually bring to the table and enhance everyone's livelihoods as a result of that. It's important for me as an economist when I think of, how globalization has actually improved the world over the last 40, 50 years. One of the big things that improved livelihoods across the world was free trade in, in capital, in labor, as well as in ideas. And as a result, more than maybe 1 billion people were moved up from the poverty line because of that. Okay? But at the same time, globalization did have setbacks. And some of the setbacks were that as a result of globalization, it was true that in many areas, wages did fall, jobs did become more insecure, and inequality has grown very seriously. Okay? And this is a new phase in which, if we don't start to think about how the digital world is going to offset some of that, it is really going to result in societies which are very fragile and which could actually result in political and other changes which will come back to haunt us. So we are really at the cusp of a very opportune moment. The center has a lot to think and do, which can, actually transform the ways in which we live. And I look forward to many of the conversations that we'll have and many of the contributions that we would make as a group from right across the world, not just from here, to some of these challenging moments in our time. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Errol, for providing us guidance and informing us about some of the directions we can take forward. With this, we move to the council meeting, and do we need to do anything, or?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. At the outset, I'd like to thank IIM Ahmedabad for giving Bank of America an opportunity to collaborate with you to build a Center for Digital Transformation and bring together some of the finest minds from academia, technology, and finance to create a responsible digital framework. Professor Errol Thank you for your leadership and wisdom in shaping the framework of the center. With your astute mentorship, I'm sure the center will achieve its stated goals. In Professor Pankaj Setia, the center could not have found a better founding chair. Your expertise and deep insights in IT strategy, governance, and open source software will surely benefit the center. Of course, Cathy, it was great to hear you and your vision for the center. You've always supported digital innovation across the world. We know India is close to your heart, and in normal times, I know you would have flown in to inaugurate this center in person. I recall in 2019 visiting the IIM campus where you addressed the management graduates of 2019 and met Professor Errol and expressed your desire to collaborate and fund a digital center at this prestigious institute. I'm glad your vision finds fruition today. I would like to thank Aditya Puri, Nandan Nilakani, Arundhati Bhattacharya, Rajesh Gopinathan, Debjani Ghosh, Sumeet Chabria, Debjit Roy, Ramayya Krishnan, Dr. Ritu Agarwal, and Vallabh Sambamurthy, who have agreed to join us as an advisor or a council member. The center is blessed to have these global thought leaders to guide the center to achieve its goals. All of you have contributed tremendously in furthering the digital revolution in India or in US. Your collective wisdom will be of immense value to the center. So once again, thank you everyone. I hope all of you have a splendid day or a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaku. With that, we will end the public part of the proceedings and we'll move to the, are we in the council? Can we move to the council? Oh, okay. So with that, we, I think, declare the center inaugurated and close the proceedings for the public.